Okay, I think we are ready to start. So this is the business models for company and product service level, and Sander will be moderating. Sander, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Greetings from Vilnius. Good to see many of you. I'm looking from the camera on the back of most of you, but you can see my face. I see my own face. Yes, my name is Sander van der Molen. I'm part of the AgROBOfood consortium. The partner is called Startup Division, a non-profit arm of Tuta, the management consultancy company. My own experience is in helping digital innovation hubs to set up their business model, the services, the consortium, the governance model. In the AgROBOfood project, our role is, besides being representative in Lithuania, also to provide services for beneficiaries. And today I'll be your moderator on this session on how digital innovation hubs can help companies to set up their business model. And this is, I think, a very important question, which we'll be discussing in this session. I have to alert you that there is a microphone available for you. So in case you want to ask questions physically, there is a microphone. Please, you'll have support. Yes. Thanks for zooming in. It's laying there on the table. And for the people connecting remotely, please raise your hand virtually. Or in case we don't see, because sometimes the number of participants is high and I can't see, feel free to unmute yourself. The rules of the game for this webinar are: please keep camera on as much as you can so we can see you. For the ones that are remote, keep your mic off when you're not talking to prevent background noise. And to make this session hopefully a good success, we have, and I want to introduce you to three participants, contributors, presenters, and panel discussion members. We've chosen to have a variety of three different perspectives and people with different backgrounds to shed some light on the topic of how digital innovation hubs can help companies set up their business model. Starting, we have Bram Tijmons. He's founder of PATS Indoor Drone Solutions, a company that has benefited and is benefiting from AgROBOfood consortium. He'll introduce himself, his solution, and also how he as a company has benefited so far from AgROBOfood services. And he can indicate what, as an end user perspective, how the services has benefited him. And he can shine a light and answer some questions on how could these services be improved, what are needs unmet yet. Second, I want to introduce you to Christine O'Meara of the Waterfood Institute of Technology. She can represent the perspective of a digital innovation hub. What are, from the digital innovation hub in the AgROBOfood consortium, the experiences of how to service clients, how to service SMEs from technical perspective, but also from the non-technical perspective. What are the needs from the SME service? What's the help of AgROBOfood consortium in providing the tools, services, network to knowledge and expertise? And thirdly, we have Maurits Butter from TNO representing the Rodin consortium, project consortium, that is helping all the robotics projects, not only on AgROBOfood, but on other thematics in supporting the networking, developing the business models for sustainability, looking at how digital innovation hubs are developing, maturing, how they are networked, how they relate to European digital innovation hubs. And from a more holistic perspective, can identify what are the trends also seen in whole Europe in the different digital innovation hubs and the network of digital innovation hubs. So we'll have three short presentations, and then we'll have panel discussions, questions and answers. So as mentioned, there's a microphone to ask questions. For the people online, there's a chat where you can ask questions. I've prepared some questions for the speakers. But I want to keep it short from my side. I want to actually invite Bram Tijmans to start with his presentation about his company and how he has benefited from the agROBOfood services. Bram, feel free.
Good morning, everyone. I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for the introduction, Sander. I'll share my presentation for today. Please give me feedback if that's working as it should.
I can see it, and now in presentation mode. Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thanks for the intro, Sander. As Sander already mentioned, my name is Bram Tijmans. I'm one of the founders of PATS. And at PATS, we are automating insect control with vision solutions and bat-like drones. I will go into depth in a little bit about that. And for the agROBOfood network, we joined late 2020 together with a consortium. This consortium is consisting of an end user for our technologies, and that's HortiPower. It's the tomato grower in Belgium, and a research center, and that is in Hoogstraten. That's also in Belgium, where they do a lot of research on both tomato and strawberry crops and some other services. At PATS, like I said, we are developing solutions to automate insect control. This involves monitoring and control of the pests. We have been developing the solutions in the past years. I'll go into depth how it works, what it's doing in a little bit. But for us, it was really important to validate this technology and optimize it for applying it in a food environment. So where tomatoes, bell pepper, or cucumbers are grown, because these are the, let's say, the major crops grown. And we have participated in agROBOfood network, so we're benefiting from it. We're working together with the network. We're using the services, so I can tell you a little bit about that. And this is what I want to touch upon in my presentation. A little bit about the background of PATS. I already mentioned what we're doing, and here's a little scheme of how we were, let's say, validating and iterating and optimizing our technology at Proefcentrum Hoogstraten. It's now, last year has been validated, but it's now also validated in, let's say, a practice environment at HortiPower. That's just a commercial grower. And what you see here is 4 hardware modules, of course, heavy software aspects. Where we have, this is the PATS brain, so to say. This is where a camera is observing all the flying insects in the greenhouse. These can be beneficial, these can be harmful. And we are focusing in this project on controlling moth pest. Maybe you're familiar with the Tuta absoluta, the tomato leaf miner moth. This is a main topic in tomato cultivation. It's a pest not well known 10 years ago, but now it's present in 60% of all the tomato crops grown globally. So it's spreading super fast, and yeah, the need for, let's say, more clean solutions, as the availability of crop protection solutions is decreasing, is highly needed. So you see the technology. This camera system here controls both the drone and observes the insect. The drone is always stationary, sitting on a charging platform, and based from there, the drone can send the drone into the flight path of the moth, eradicates it with propellers, thus stopping the further reproduction of pests. If you look at pests today, they are all tackled already in the problem phase. So when they're a caterpillar, when they're damaging the crop, damaging the fruit, damaging the root, whatever. And we want to go a little bit earlier in the process, stopping the adults from finding each other and from, let's say, distributing eggs and thus caterpillars through the crops. And this is how this technology is solving that. Now here you have a layout again. So once more, this is where the heavy software component is happening. So it is a 3D camera observing all the flying insects, controlling the drone at the same time. So bringing one to the other, so to say. 4G connectivity, so that we can always update, but also get data from it remotely. And then, of course, processing power. Now, as we are today monitoring or controlling and monitoring moth pests, we have to do this at night because they're nocturnal. So this is why we need infrared to actually see them in the dark. You see it in a little bit in some videos. We've developed a charging platform. So there's a lot of hardware involved where the drone is making the whole system, the autonomous insect control platform, making it really autonomous so that the grower has less time needed to control the pest and pay attention to that. And then we develop very small drones that are used, like bats, to take out the insect. How does it look in practice? I have a few videos that I want to share. That some technology also has been developed during the AgROBOfood project and still ongoing. And here you have the perspective from our cameras on the top of the crops. In this case, there's an ample space. You see also here the crop does not go higher than this. And then moths start to fly into this environment. And what we do with that data is we collect the flight path, some characteristics on the insects, and based on that, we can determine what kind of pest insect we're looking at. Because any insect you're looking at, even if it's in the moth class and you have multiple there, can be discriminated based on their features. This can be the flight path, this can be the size, this can be the speed, can be wing beat, all kinds of characteristics that we are putting in our AI models to automatically determine which insect we're looking at and if it needs to be eradicated, because the beneficials like bumblebees or natural predators, we want to keep alive, of course. This can be done for large moths. This can be done for small moths. So here's the Tuta absoluta, the problem that we were tackling in the AgROBOfood project. And what is cool, during the project, we learned that the detection of moth in tomato crop is already of high value to growers. And so we're able actually to launch this solution, a part of the solution, and just seeing the insect and communicating this data with the growers was already valuable for their crop protection activities. So for planning their spraying rounds, deploying natural predators, really helped them, because we're able to see pests sometimes weeks earlier than is available, than is possible with let's say more analog solutions they are using today, which require a lot of labor. So that's already a big how to call it a benefit of the project for PATS and for the consortium, a big win. Then of course you're interested, okay, you just saw the picture from the drone above the crops. I have some images for that as well. Don't look at the crops because it's the end of the cycle of the test, but here you can see how our autonomous drones are flying at daylight, during darkness, through the greenhouse, and how they can do very, let's say, aggressive maneuvers, which we need to eradicate the insect, all based on the camera system. So there's no pilot involved. You could say that we are the first company already having realized autonomous drone platform in horticulture and then specifically in tomato. These images, the quality is a little bit low. I show you some better in a little bit, but it's chasing the red dots. And here you can really see that we're also able to maneuver between the wires. You can imagine that in the high crops, tomato, bell pepper, there's a lot of wires, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of crops, and it's really hard to navigate. But we've demonstrated in the project that we are able to see and maneuver the drone, and at the same time take out these insects in such an environment. And this is, I think, a big win as well, and promising towards the future. And it looks like this, 2 short frames. Here you see the image from the camera, the normal image. Let's look at that first. And here you can see that in these 2 rows that you have, the drone is able to do very fast and quick maneuvers, hunting the red dot that you can see there. And so it goes pretty fast. If you then look on the right side, we made a special layer to see what's moving, and then you see how fast it is taking out this insect, staying inside the boundaries that the camera is observing, taking out these moths, as they go. And this is stopping the pest development. As you can imagine, Tuta absoluta is a very small moth. It's smaller than, it's about 8 millimeters in wingspan, so there's not a big effect. So I also want to show this video where we take out tomato looper, also very common as a pest in tomato, much bigger. Here's another environment, but here we show you a little bit more, how the system is working, taking out the insect, and then going back to the platform to sit there and recharge. And if you look here, if you play it a little bit slower, you can see that the drone is actually chasing the moth, correcting for its flight path because it's a moving object, and then shredding it to pieces. So it's really it's a bit of a laser guided missiles kind of way of taking out these insects. Well, you can imagine that when we were building these products and this technology, that there's a lot of, let's say, unknowns. Also on population development, each insect is different, mods are different. And so I want also to touch upon that, because we're highly a technological company and not so much a green or a biological company. Yeah? So we don't know that much about cultivation or insects. Of course, this is increasing. And this is where also the help from one of the digital innovation hubs came into play. I'll come back to that in a little bit. A little bit about the business model. What we are doing at POTS is that we are providing growers with a service. We are, first of all, working towards eradicating pests in a mechanical way, solving a lot of issues of growers, using labor to spray, the spray itself, the ongoing damages. And then we have the monitoring, which turned out to be of huge value to tomato growers, bell peppers, but also other crops in the meantime, learning about the pest, seeing when it's first rising, see if populations are increasing or decreasing, really helping for the grower to time when to do what, to save beneficials, but also to control pests more accurately. And we're marketing this as a service model. So we say we stay owner of the hardware. That also means that we take control of replacing if something goes wrong with the hardware or the drone breaks down. That's all on our account. 4G connectivity, further development. Of course, this does not stop at the 2 mods we just addressed. We can, in a bit, we can monitor almost all flying insects and take out the bad ones that needs eradication. And this we marked as a service model, where growers pay a recurring fee for the service that we are providing. You can imagine that there's a lot of unknowns, as already mentioned just now. And that's why we called in the help of the services of the digital innovation hubs and service providers. And one of these topics is insect discrimination and behavior. And for that, we collaborated with Wageningen University and Research, with one of their entomologists in their wind tunnel. And there we researched the behavior of the 2 mods in topic, the Tuta absoluta and the tomato looper, to see their behavior in an environment, see how they're flying, so that we can train our models, but also see how they react to light, sound, and most importantly, the drones themselves, that some of the mods really see as a predator coming after them. And it looks a little bit like this in this environment. Hope you can see it. It's a little bit small, but just a quick video how in the wind tunnel we're using this data to train models and find this out. We have done this research. We have done a lot of tests. We still have some budget there and some ongoing, let's say ongoing research. The second thing is not non-technical, and it's more of a market research thing. We know a lot, we are from the Netherlands in Delft. We know a lot about the Dutch market. We know quite some about the Belgian market, but then it gets very blurred for us. And so we called in the help of Civita, to do both desk research and field research. And that already, the desk research is finished, the field research is still ongoing. And that already helped us to find out, okay, which countries are interesting for POTS to go to when the system's are ready for launch later this year. Of course, you cannot roll out from the Netherlands internationally immediately, but it helps to make a battle plan, so to say. And we were able to mainly exclude countries which we thought were interesting based on the desk research early on, and said, okay, now let's focus on these 6 countries for now. And I think pretty sure that after the field research, there only will be 3 or 4 left that you can really focus on in the coming years. And so that's helping us in that way. And this is mainly focused on tomato cultivation. This is the biggest crop grown in horticulture. And then we have the dissemination. And therefore we also called in the help of Wageningen University. And this involves writing articles with results about the systems at Research Centrum Hoogstratum, at HortiPower. It's like an ongoing service, really disseminating what are we doing in this project, what are the results, and how can this benefit growers now and in the future, and also sharing it within the agROBOfood network, because there's a lot of, let's say, companies, institutions that we don't know, but who can benefit from such a technology being developed, addressing some important, let's say, objectives for the near future, both on a European and national level. And also some help on developing the demo and launch video, which we're working on as we speak, to launch actually this solution of insect control also in tomato crops. And this is planned for later this year. So that we actually can engage more tomato growers and look further than just the scope of the Netherlands, but yeah, gain more traction and start the, let's say, the pre-ordering process. So this is how AgROBOfood has helped us from first validations and the project, first validations of the technology in tomato crop to almost a launch mid 2022, end of 2022, with help of the digital innovation hubs. So we are at PATS, we are, let's say, on a mission to help growers automate the full insect monitoring and insect control process. And with full, I mean all flying insects, obviously, for now. Big ambitions are for the future. But this is something really, going to revolutionize insect control in, for now, let's say, closed environments. But for the monitoring solution, we also see already applications for, let's say, open field agriculture. So this is, some ideas and visions we have for the future of the company, and the consortium that we worked with and the digital innovation hubs and AgROBOfood network have really helped in realizing the first steps and getting this solution closer to a market introduction. And with that, I want to conclude my presentation and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bram.
You're welcome.
Very interesting. It looks a bit like toys for adults and for growers. Interesting to see those videos. Any questions from the audience? We'll later on, after the 3 presentations, have a panel discussion. So I already have questions I would like to ask, but I'll pause a bit for the discussion. Do we have any clarification questions? People that are curious to know. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. I was just curious, not necessarily for now about the business model, but a bit about the comparison to other similar solutions. So I was just curious whether you were, for example, aware of TrapView and how it compares to that.
Yeah, that's a really nice question. I really like that one. So what we learned in the process, and this is not only in tomato, but let's say the last 1.5 years, is that this is also feedback from growers. So that we learned that looking with cameras in a greenhouse and just taking a sample, like you would do with the population, we are able to establish moths really early on. And we have multiple instances where tomato growers, strawberry growers, cut flower growers are saying, is your data correct? You see all these moths, but I do not find them in my pheromone traps or UV light traps. And TrapView, for example, works with pheromone traps where they put a camera on. But that still means that the adult needs to fly into that trap. And this can take a while because if pressure is low, why would it go in there? And what is the timing for that? And so we have instances where we were able to see a moth pest 6 to 7 weeks earlier. If you think about the integrated pest management, approach, this is crucial because it's becoming so difficult for using, let's say, crop protection. You really have to time it right and be super wary of, am I going to use my solution that I can only use 3 times this year, or am I going to postpone it a little bit, or should I be earlier? So this way we have been able to improve actually such technologies from our perspective, at least, to help growers act even faster. Does that answer your question?
Just wait.
Yes, thank you. But I
stopped sharing because I stopped sharing. Otherwise, I don't see anyone else. So that's very.
I was curious whether it's already being used in the Netherlands. Whether you have customers already, or do you still have to launch?
So if you look at the monitoring solution, which we in the beginning did not even think at value, so that was quite a nice find. We launched that during the AgROBOfood project. And we now have about 100 growers working with it, both in the Netherlands and abroad. That's a real plug and play system. It's even running for false codling moth, for example, in rows in Africa. That's of course not food, but it shows that it's, you can apply it in any environment where there's moth, kind of, and other insects. And there's a lot of crops that are dealing with it and can really, work in any environment from high tech to low tech greenhouses. Just plugging it in the socket, and then 4G connectivity does the rest. If you look at the drone solution, we're now piloting this at tomato growers, hortipower, for example, at some other potted plant growers and at gerbera growers. We're increasing those pilots, so because we want to build references for an introduction and for launch of the control solution later this year. So this is really coming close to the market, and we're now signing the contracts with the first growers to adopt this.
Very promising. Thank you, Bram.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for this very nice presentation. My name is Thilo. I'm wondering, you just mentioned you have a camera and it finds the insects. Sounds easy. So I don't know the Dutch name or the zoological name. This white, very small white fly that you have in the glass houses. Are your systems limited to these small insects because you first have to identify them and maybe you can hear them, I don't know. And secondly, you probably cannot kill them with a drone because they get through the drone without being damaged. Also, to keep it more in general, are there any limitations regarding special types of insects? Thank you.
Yeah, no, very valid question, and I see two solutions that need to be built for that. And we are mainly at POTS focusing on the insects 4 millimeters in wingspan, so the insects can be a little bit smaller, but when they're flying, 4 millimeters or bigger. That involves all moth, but also a lot of, let's say, mosquito types of insects, Sciara, Scatella, that kind of insect. If you talk about whitefly, thrips, aphids, this is not in scope, and these are also really bad flyers. They barely fly. So for us, yeah, that would need some kind of other technology, and you see already quite some companies working on that to launch that. And I think if you combine those technologies, you have a full automated monitoring solution. Controlling them with drones, that I do not see happening very fast. That is that I fully agree.
Great. Thank you for the questions from the audience.
There are no more questions currently.
Good.
And Bram,
well, I have questions, but I'll save them for the panel discussion. Thank you very much, Bram. Then I would want to switch the perspective to an actual digital innovation hub. And we have here Christine O'Meara. And please, the word is yours.
Thank you very much, Sander. I'm very happy to be able to present virtually. I had hoped to be there in person, but a chest infection had intervened, so I'm not able. I'm a commercialization specialist and I focus on dissemination and impact in the Walton Institute, which is an ICT R&D centre in Ireland. I suppose on the plus side, I won't be disseminating any unnecessary viruses in person, and COVID has allowed us to have a very effective hybrid event, so I'm very happy about that. So the Walton Institute for Information and Communication System Sciences, we were formerly known up until just over a year ago as TSSG, the Telecommunication System and Software Group. We have been an ICT R&D centre since 1996, and our directors are Kevin Doolan, who's the Director of Innovation, and Deirdre Kilban, who's the Director of Research. We're based in Waterford. We've got a fabulous campus that you can see there, which is on the banks of the River Suir, and it's on the edge of Waterford City. We've got just over 80 staff, and we are self-funded. We have all the, I suppose, fundamental ICT expertise that you would expect: communication networks, wireless systems, machine learning and artificial intelligence, emerging communications, pervasive environments and computing. And we apply our expertise to many domains, including health, agriculture, transport, cybersecurity, the brain, and energy. So I suppose this kind of neatly sums up the three-pronged approach that we take. We do pure science, pure research. We're also engineering-led, and we would do applied research. We have collaborations with industry. We work through the European Horizon programs, and then we have an entrepreneurship division, which is really quite market-led. It's focused on industry engagement and that would be headed out by our technology gateway. We've got a lot of international partnerships all over Europe and all over the world that are very important to us. We have academic partnerships, but we also have partnerships with SMEs and with industry, including IBM, Dell, and some homegrown companies like Nearform. And yeah, so that's kind of a summary of who we are. So what about the Walton Institute and AgROBOfood? I suppose essentially we're a digital innovation hub or a digital innovation node. And these main bullet points would have been the original vision for the role that was set out by the project. And I suppose number one would be to support SMEs and local stakeholders. And we would have supported a number of Irish SMEs with their open call applications, helping them to define innovation experiments, to navigate the requirements of the open call, supporting them with their application process, and also facilitating matchmaking. On the business and ecosystem services, 4 types were identified, and incubator and accelerator support we provide through the likes of a New Frontiers program, which is essentially an accelerator program that offers structured mentorship, some finance, and I suppose a program to help very early stage companies develop their business plans, secure financing, get their initial customers. Access to finance is achieved through the New Frontiers program. We would work with a lot of SMEs that are able to secure essentially vouchers or monies from the National Funding Agency Enterprise Ireland, and they can redeem that money through us or through other R&D centres. Project development occurs through our national and EU research and innovation actions. And, we do offer housing. We have ARC Labs, which is our headquarters, which is an incubation space for early stage companies. It's also a space where international companies who are looking to set up in Ireland and want to put in a kind of a test office can locate before they scale up and move out to a larger premises. So the likes of Rootmatch would have done that, for example. We have a lot of test bed facilities. We have an agri test bed, we have a high performance computing center, we have a mixed reality test bed that we can provide as services to businesses and industry. So yes, we can act as a one-stop shop, either through delivering technical services or facilitating access to business services. We do collaborate with other centres. For example, the Agri-Tech cluster in Tralee. We co-hosted a podcast last week, and we would point companies to each other, depending on where the best set of expertise was. We would direct a company to the right place. We obviously have a strong relationship with Vaganen and with Eric as our cluster leader. And I suppose, we increasingly have a strong track record in smart agriculture. We're particularly strong in the areas of IoT. So if you think about robotics and the very simple definition of sense, think, and act. We would do a lot of work in the areas of sensing, in the areas of artificial intelligence, in the areas of algorithms. And an example of such a project would be MELD, which is about early detection and notification of lameness in cattle. Vista Milk is also another multi-party project in Ireland, which we're involved in, which is about looking at soil, looking at animal health, animal nutrition, and it's about optimizing, I suppose, milk production and milk indicators and health of animals in Ireland. How do we set ourselves up to provide non-technical services to SMEs? Yes, ICT, we are a competency centre for ICT, but we are structured to ensure that we can provide non-technical services as well. So firstly, through our technology gateway, which I'll elaborate on shortly, and that's part of the Walton Institute. Secondly, through that ARC Labs Research and Innovation Centre, which is co-located with Walton and which facilitates early stage startups to participate in the New Frontiers program, to have access to office space. But also there's a great amount of shared knowledge between the SMEs that are co-located with us and ourselves, and we would support them with innovation vouchers. We see a lot of mobility of staff to and from the SMEs or the industries that are co-located with us. And that shared knowledge benefits us in terms of understanding industry needs, and also benefits the startups or the larger companies who need access to that specialist knowledge. RIKON, I'll also talk about briefly. It's a sister organization of Walton. So it's the equivalent of Walton, but very much with a business optimization focus. And they look at not just businesses where technology is a key focus, but any type of business, if you like. And we work closely with them. And then finally, our technology transfer office, who really are very focused on getting our IP off the shelf. And, you know, they've got a range of licensing and technology assignment options. And, you know, we prefer to see it used than lost. So, you know, there's great flexibility in terms of licensing with royalty-free licenses. Some will be royalty-bearer licenses, all up for negotiation. And then, you know, I suppose our non-technical services are also provided every day in our R&D activities. And I suppose, you know, we are very focused on impact. That would be my role. And we're, you know, it's all about leading with the need. So there's two ways that we do it. And really a lot of this is driven by the European research funding. If you think about the emphasis on the multi-actor approach, the emphasis on understanding user needs, we follow a design thinking approach, and that's led by our creative design team. So we're all about co-creating solutions, and we involve end users and all stakeholders at every part of the process. So, you know, it starts with understanding what the needs are, understanding who the key stakeholders are, and, you know, really getting to understand the problem right through to developing the prototype, getting feedback on the prototype. The second piece of it is that we do have commercialization and exploitation resources baked into our projects, which are very focused on, well, whatever is built out of this, whatever the Walton Institute generates, how can we make sure that has impact? How can we make sure that's used? Are there, you know, is this fit for exploitation, or does it need a little bit of follow-on funding? So, you know, that's kind of baked into all of the projects that we do. So our gateway, briefly, staffed with 3 people, actually. Unfortunately, Miguel has just left us, but we have a technology gateway manager and 2 business development executives. This is funded by Enterprise Ireland. Through the technology gateway, we've completed over 250 industry direct projects in the past 5 years. We've also spun out a number of startups. I suppose Feed Henry would be the most high profile one, which was acquired by Red Hat and subsequently is now owned by IBM. Really, it's about supporting technology solutions that are very close to market needs. And a key part of that will be your state-of-the-art analysis, looking at what's out there, doing your competitive benchmarking, doing your market assessments. And, you know, sometimes an SME will come to you with a technology problem, but when you go through that initial problem discovery phase, you'll discover, well, yes, technology is one aspect of what they need to solve, but they also need to understand, does it have value, and what that value is. So there's a market aspect to a lot of this work. And, you know, we would have had a number of companies come to at one point and say, we have a lot of data. We don't know what to do with this data. We think we could get more intelligence from it. You know, we think, you know, we should look at AI and see what insights can be leveraged from this. But we're also not sure how to leverage the value of that data. So there's a technology piece, but there's also a market piece as well. You know, there's lots of different models of engaging with us. You know, through Enterprise Ireland, I've mentioned the innovation vouchers where, you know, essentially SMEs can get 5 to 20K of funding in the form of a voucher to solve an innovation technology problem with us. And they can bring that voucher to us. We'll help them solve the problem. Innovation partnership programs, companies can get up to 80% of funding to do something similar but deeper and more extensive. We do contract R&D, we have the EU programs and technology licensing, and then there's all those test beds that you have access to as well. That's just some of them, our e-textile, our mixed reality, and our smart agriculture IoT test beds. So what does it look like when you engage with us? I suppose our Agri Sprint is an example of how we would engage. And this would be something that would be typically funded by a voucher that's worth about €5,000. So maybe the first voucher that you redeem with us. How we do this is we bring together a multidisciplinary team of experts. So you might have somebody with AI knowledge, you might have somebody with knowledge of sensors, you might have someone with platform knowledge. You bring together a team of experts, and stage 1 is all about the problem discovery, listening to the customer and using a problem canvas to really understand the who, the what, the where, and the why of the problem. Understand the day in the life of a typical problem, of a typical customer, and at what point in a process they're encountering issues, really delving into those pain points. And I suppose you might come up with a number of problems or a number of pain points, and you need to prioritize those. So that's step one. Step two would be about solution discovery. And this is a very intense process. You know, it's a small amount of funding, and it's really about formulating the bones or outlining the bones of a solution. So step two is quite market led. So it will be built on looking a little bit about state of the art, what's out there. And if there's nothing in the immediate market, if there's nothing in agriculture, is there something in another market that can act as a reference point or in another sector? And then it's, you know, about brainstorming solutions. You can dismiss some, you might merge some ideas, you'll eliminate some, and you benefit from the collective expertise of the technical experts in the room. From there, you'll go on to storyboard the problem. You know, you'll be checking different what technical components need to go into the solution, what are the technical risks with various aspects of the technology, and then you'll develop some kind of a prototype mock-up. It could be wireframes, it could be something else. It needs to be a realistic representation of what you're proposing, because you want the customer to understand the benefits and the implications. And then you'll present that to the customer. So you'll have outlined, it could be, you know, a high level architecture of a solution. You know, there could be lots of different facets to it, but you'll have done quite a bit of research to get to this stage. So that's an example of how we would engage with customers. I'll talk briefly about our sister organization, RIKON. So it's a business research and innovation center, and it's under the overall Waterford Institute of Technology umbrella. They have a lot of different services that they will offer to customers, strategy and business model innovation, and that's represented by this diagram here. So this is really about looking at the core competencies of an organization, the key challenges that they're facing, putting that in the context of what's happening in the overall market environment, looking at key trends, looking at the competitive landscape, and looking at best practice. And from here, it's identifying opportunities, you know, whether it's new products, customer segments, markets, etc., and looking at the business model, seeing if there are ways it can be improved, and just coming up with an action plan, you know, based on that strategy and business model analysis. Operational excellence, you know, there's lots of different tools that RIKON would use here. They'd look at process improvement tools such as business process mapping, strategy and leadership tools, you know, around KPIs or KBIs, data enablement tools, you know, whether it's a data management log, data architecture, data requirement assessment. You know, the whole digital transformation and marketing service and design, you know, a lot of legacy SMEs might kind of turn to an organization like ourselves to get started and to look at, you know, things like outbound marketing strategies, doing a digital strategy review, a data review. There's a lot of underutilized data in a lot of SMEs. Marketing and service design, similar, you know, your customer insight and segmentation, your marketing planning. Enterprise technology optimization, I suppose this really looks at your IT vision, your strategies, your governance models. You know, again, there's different tools that can be used. RIKON specializes in lean approaches. They'll do system capability gap analysis. They have a lot of expertise within their organization. And finally, there's that process engineering simulation. You know, it will look at your end-to-end process mapping and then do kind of what if change scenarios. What would this impact if we change this here or altered this? It's kind of a process experimentation in a safe environment. And I suppose to finish, you know, business modeling is the overall name of the topic, if you like. These are just a couple of random thoughts. If you think about what a business model is, you know, Drucker, you know, he's a kind of a classic theorist, but also practitioner. You know, it's about who your customer is, what value you can create and add for the customer. So there's two parts to it. And, you know, to me, that notion of value is at the center of it, because value implies that there's going to be a monetary or an in-kind exchange, which is important for the sustainability of the business. But it has to have value for the customer, but it also has to realize value for the organization that is invested in delivering this value proposition. And, you know, one customer segment in agri-food is obviously the farmer. You know, there's a lot of technologies pitched at farmers. And we spent a lot of time through projects over the past few years listening to the farmers. I suppose a few observations that we would have is every solution should consider multiple dimensions. So it's not just about the technology solution. In one project, and even for CAP, which we're involved in, we divided the solutions into 3 different areas. The technology piece is one, it's fundamental, obviously, how something works. But even that technology dimension has to consider things like access to supporting infrastructure, the confidence level of the target market, previous experience with technology, all of that kind of thing. The trust dimension is really complex, and this really feeds into business models because cost is, you know, identified as a deterrent for adopting certain technologies. But at the same time, you know, one survey that we did, which was responded to by 484 farmers, the vast majority of them said they would prefer to own technology rather than lease it. So there's an element, a kind of a trust issue there, you know, that really does need to be considered. And also there's trust around the pervasive sensing of technologies and whether data collected might result in self-implication of farmers, you know, when they're looking to, I suppose, get their CAP payment. And the final one is value. And, you know, it's, I suppose it's seemingly obvious, but, you know, farmers have to be convinced of the value of technology. So demonstrations are important. Farmers will often be convinced more readily by their peers. But again, the value exchange has to be two-way. You know, it has to be viable, feasible, and profitable for the technology provider as well. You know, and I suppose all of that feeds into the fact that some needs and wants are conflicting. You know, there's a lot of talk about monetizing data and data spaces, and I think we're getting closer to making that happen really effectively in the agri-food sector. But then on the other side of the equation, you've got concerns about data sharing. You know, and will that information be used to get me, or am I getting enough from my data? I mentioned already technology costs are a deterrent, but there is a desire for ownership. And, you know, there's lots of other kind of conflicting needs and wants out there that need to be resolved. And, you know, on the subject of what kind of business models work, the previous speaker referred to robots as a service, and it would seem to be the most practical. But there may be situations where there's a greater desire for ownership or control. You know, are we looking at the next generation of agri-co-ops where we're building governance models and structures to support greater shared ownership of technology? Leasing, purchasing, lots of other options. And I think I'll finish before the coughing fit overtakes me. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Christine. It already raises lots of discussions for the panel discussion because you immediately ask questions as a Digital Innovation Hub to actually Bram as an SME. Why the service model? And before Bram, you'll start answering, maybe we'll leave it to the panel discussion. Are there any questions from the audience to Christine? Clarifying questions?
Hi, Sander. I don't see any questions so far here in the room.
Okay, clear. I have questions, but I'll save them for the panel discussion. Then let's go to the third presenter, Maurits Potter from... Yes,
sorry.
there is a question.
Kees has a question.
Yes. Hi, Kees.
Yeah, maybe for now or later for the panel discussion, but did the last couple of years the business model of the Walton Digital Innovation Hub change drastically, or is it expected that it will stable and will be as used in the last couple of years?
I think it's quite stable, but it's been a more challenging environment. You know, events are really important to us in terms of making connections with industry partners and driving business. So I think it's been a more challenging environment, but overall our business model has, it's quite stable. I think we've got smarter about how we're doing things. And I think we're definitely prioritizing this focus on impact, this focus on the market through all of our research and development activities. So brief answer, but hopefully that covers it.
Thank you, Christine. Yes, let's move to the third presenter, Maurits Putter, representing TNO and the Rodin Project Consortium. Maurits, the word is yours.
Great. Let me try to get my presentation. Do you all see my presentation?
Not yet. We see you. We hear you.
So, share. Yes?
Yes.
Great, great. So, thank you for inviting me. So I work for TNO. I work in the field of the soft side of technologies. I've been engaged in setting up digital innovation hubs from the early 2010s on. So I think the first time I was confronted with it was in 2013, although they were not called digital innovation hubs yet. But I want to share with you some insights about business models and digital innovation hubs. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to look at it from the perspective of your customers. I'm going to look at it from the perspective of you. So that's an important element to understand. So my presentation is about how is a business model connected to your own business model. That's what I want to address in this presentation. I think most of you will know this picture. It's the Glassman Business Model Navigator picture, where it says they concluded that if you look at the business model, it's the balance between, well, sure, the customer is at the center, but it needs to be serviced by some values, and you need to organize that service delivery. But very important is also the reason why they would like to pay for your service. And what I would like to do today is look at the what and the why. So look at the value proposition from your, with regards to business models from your own organization, your digital innovation hub, and why would customers pay for those services? Those two elements I would like to address a little bit more in depth. So first, the what. I also think that that most of you will have seen this picture. This is about the overview of the services that a digital innovation hub can provide towards their customers. The customers being the direct customers, SMEs, farms, other kind of organizations that are out there that needs to boost their digital transformation or other advanced digital technologies, implement their advanced digital technologies. And if you look at this scheme, the business models are here. It's part of the business element, of course, of the of this scheme. So it's the soft side of innovation, and it's about supporting startups, accelerators, supporting businesses to include the advanced digital technologies in their business, as well as it is access to finance to get those customers connected to the ones that can offer them money to build their new businesses. So those are the two elements which are important. And I can tell you, this is very much connected to all of the different services. So if you look, for example, at MTC, the Manufacturing Technology Center in Coventry, they have a special department focusing on business models. But they only can do that because they also got some other service providers, services that are provided to their customers, like, for example, the technological development. So that's the blue part. But they also got a huge center which is focused on the brown part. It's the training center. And it's very much connected, because you can understand that if you want to deploy services on business models, that it's very convenient that you have some technological experts on board there, that you can take your customer with you to showcase what the technology can bring. And on the other hand, if the technological experts are involved with customers to develop new technologies, that they can go to the department which also takes up that technology and brings it to a status where you can actually build your business model and build the product in a wider context to the customers of the customer. And then also it's supported by training them how to deal with that. And that's what that MTC training center is about. And this slide is about the willingness for customers to pay for those services. And this is only about the indirect customers. I call them indirect customers. Those are the governments. And what you can see there is that there's a lot of services that they would like, but there's a limited number of services that they want to actually pay for. And here again, these are the ones that are directly connected to the business models, the business model services. You can also look at it from the perspective of the industry. I only take the industry. I would not know how to deal with farms, so how they would look at it. But you can clearly see here also that they will be having a hard time to pay for those services, those business model services. And you need to find ways how to deal with those kind of things. Because offering a wonderful value is in vain if you will not get paid for it, either directly or indirectly, by the SME or your direct customer, or by governments that will support you to provide those services to those customers. And that's something that you really need to think about, because it's all a business model is about not about the value that is created, it's about the balance between the value created and the capitalization of the value in your organization. Key to this are assets. These are the core instruments or the core production factors that you want in order to provide the service. So these are the building blocks that the services are built upon. I can go through all of them, but I've identified the ones that I think are crucial for the delivery of the business model services. Infrastructure. There's going to be platforms needed that people can go to understand what business models are, etc., etc. You need to have some key enabling methodologies. I call them intellectual property. It's not an IPR as such, but it's the things that you need to bring in to provide your customer with the business model services. It's about having a lot of materials. It's about the expertise of your people that know how to build those services. It's about access to finance, enabling your customers to get money for their business. And it's about the brand position that you as a digital innovation hub need to have on business models. Because if you have a strong expertise in business models, but no one knows it, it's just in vain. You need to showcase to the rest of the world that you're good at it. So now the why. We identified 12 mechanisms to let the customer pay. These are the general revenue models. So a revenue model is the way to get paid. And we identified those. If you look at those, I think these are the ones that are very much related to providing business model services. I think there's a lot of money needed from government in order to allow you to provide those services to the SMEs, to startups, to farms, etc., etc. You can also use a kind of a membership model for that. And the membership model can be connected to additional services. So if you enter into a game where you offer your customers memberships, then you can also connect, but it's going to be a little bit more paid with additional services, and the business model service can be one of them. But in certain cases, it can also be just full cost service provision. The business model services are just fully paid. That can be sometimes the case. So, wrapping up, the business models are part of the business side, but they're very much connected to the other services that are provided by a digital innovation hub. There are a limited number of revenue models that you can use, but you need to use it in a multi-layered way in order to make it happen. And then you need to build your assets strongly on those 6 elements. If you're not strong on those elements, you cannot create USPs, unique selling points, or unique selling propositions to provide to your customer and to make it visible that you are one of the biggest player in this field. So now I come to my final conclusions. Offering business model support is about the connection with other services. Just offering business model support is not enough. You need to connect it to community building, because that's the way how you feed into, you create your assets to offer those business model services. Strategic RDI, that's one of the USPs. Access to finance, skill development. You need to not look at business model services as one of a separated service. You need to embed it in your whole system of service provision. And that's about creating shared mindsets between technological experts, more educational experts, networkers, and the people that are engaged with those customers to build their business. The second one is assets. You need to focus on the assets. You need to make sure that those assets are strong. You need to use the money that is available from European Commission, for example, to increase the quality of those assets. It's key to the service provision. And then last but not least, if you want to make money, you need to connect the business model services to a large number of revenue models. If you do not do that, then it's going to be very hard to make it profitable and to sustain that service to the broader community. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maurits, for these insights. Any clarification questions from the audience for Maurits on his presentation?
Thank you very much for the fantastic, I must say, presentation. You emphasized very much to the fact that the business model services are really connected with the rest services provided by the DIH. So practically, you are saying that the global performance monitoring and management from a DIH is essential.
Yes.
I have seen some European Commission documents which are very poor in terms of performance indicators. Given your huge experience, what is your view on the possibilities regarding performance management, and whether are really well customized indicators speaking about performance management in DIHs?
So this is about key performance indicators, I think. We've got quite some, but that's another project. So I'll take off my hat of Rodin and I put on my hat of the Bowie project. So that Bowie project is about establishing interregional corridors between innovation corridors. So collaborations between 2 regions. And we identified a lot of KPIs to monitor those elements. These can also be upgraded or downgraded or graded. I don't know. There's not one better than the other to the level of the digital innovation hubs, and there can be quite some key performance indicators that will be connected to the business models. Internally, it will be about the connections and the meetings between the technical people and the more business-oriented people. What I see as one of the biggest problems, and I'm a chemical engineer by training, and I had a hard time to really imagine what entrepreneurship is. One of the key elements is to connect those two from nature, different communities to each other. And there you can have some KPIs connected to. So meetings that are established, the participation of both sides in directly in customer projects. These are KPIs that you can use. But you need to have all kinds of governance structures included to make sure. So for example, if you want to evaluate one of your team members, and that the team member is a more technology-oriented person, you need to include in his periodic review, you need to include, did you collaborate with the business experts or vice versa? So these are mechanisms that you surely need to address, because otherwise it will just be two communities that will not collaborate. They've got different mindsets. And I know, because it took me a long time to understand the entrepreneurial mindset, and I'm at 40%.
Thank you. Any other questions for Maurits based on his presentation from the audience,
yes,
online,
there's
physical?
one more
Yes.
question.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It was really clear. I have one question also related to the business model, because there's quite some platforms, networks that are now there, that are created with experts, with also their business models. So my question actually would be, for instance, if I relate it to the Digital Innovations Hub, but also more in general, how does these relate to each other? In relation to their business models, how to also say, I'm maybe now on this point obsolete, so maybe I must stop or step down, and also to how to prevent that the business models from these different networks bite each other while they have same experts, same knowledge, or similar activities.
Well, but this is the Holy Grail. To answer this would be the Holy Grail. So I'm not gonna even pretend on 1% that I know the answer for this. This is exactly what you're saying. It is about giving each other the opportunity to take over some business. But you need to, under the hood, make sure that if you give up some of the some things of your market, you will still profit from it in another way. This is also, for example, if you want to engage with another region, you're giving up some of your business to another region, so they need to pay back, and you need to set governance rules or contracts or whatever you like to make sure that that will happen. It's about also building trust. At one time, I had a discussion with someone from the commission, and I said, look, TNO can also do all kinds of things, and why don't you look at me? And she said, there's a lot out there. Yeah, but now there's market, and she said, you're looking at this from a singular cake, which has a definite size. Look at it from a much more growing cake. So if you give up some of your services to other organizations, and by doing that, you can create a larger cake, it's great. This is why Elon Musk has built a huge business. He gave away his IPR, or some of his IPR, to his competitors. Why did they do that? Why did he do that? To increase the cake. And now look at it. He's the wealthiest man in the world. These kind of mechanisms you should follow. but this is just scratching the upper surface.
Great question. Not addressed the question of, do you need to be obsolete? I love the question as well. The realistic thinking for each project. Do I need to exist, and do I bring value added beyond what exists already? Because not every project can be sustainable, because you don't have room for new projects, because everybody's continuing existing projects. If there are no,
I just looked at myself and I saw that my background. This is the symbol, more or less, of what you just asked. It's a huge mess, and I'm trying to create a little bit of structure in the mess. It's not working yet.
The mess is still there. I want to move to the panel discussion, and actually we are addressing two different topics. One of the topics is the sustainability of digital innovation hubs, of digital innovation hub networks. And the second original topic of this session is also, how can digital innovation hubs help companies to set up their individual business model? And I see the discussion and the questions already go a bit through each other, because both topics are quite relevant for us. Coming maybe back to the question for helping companies to set up their business models, maybe going back to Bram. You described your business, you described a bit your business model, providing a service to companies in pest monitoring and pest handling. And actually, Christine was in her presentation a bit provocating you to say, well, maybe some of those growers, they want to own access to data. So you're monitoring and providing lots of data. How is it with access to data and ownership? And how is it with the ownership interest from growers? So maybe I don't want to attack you on the business model, but have you considered dealing with the AgROBOfood consortium in general, of discussing or even asking, what about my business model? How certain are you about the business model? What have you done? And who would you have discussions about your business model? With your customers, with consultants, with the Digital Innovation Hub?
Oh, well, it's a lot of questions actually, but I mean, yeah, for me, honestly, I'm challenging the business model every day, because every grower is different, every situation is different. So we always, I mean, we're early stage, so we're still tweaking a lot. If you think about that, so we discuss a lot with customers, potential customers, existing customers, constantly testing, trying, validating. You have some stakeholders, some mentors in the company that help you and challenge with that. But the value, and that I think is mentioned before already by Christine or Maurits, that is critical. I think it was Christine. That's critical. The value depends. And for me personally, we now have a business model, but it should be value-based pricing actually. But that is very difficult, because you cannot streamline that, because then every situation will be different. And so I see for myself a huge internal fight with myself. Okay, how to deal with that and how to make this work within the company, but also for customers. Yeah, I have not discussed it with the network, so to say, but there are a lot of stakeholders or other people involved that we discuss this with on a general basis. But it's a trial and error process, and you need to find it out for yourself in the end as well, because yeah, that is how I see it. You also had a question about the data ownership. Do you want to go back to that, Sander, or was more like?
It's relevant for your business model. Have you thought about it, and have you actually also discussed with, let's say, the AgROBOfood counterparts providing the services? How does it relate to each other, the data ownership? How does the business model relate? Those are the topics, in my feeling, perception, not yet addressed in the services, and it's actually the question of this seminar. How can digital innovation hubs help with your business models? You say you're dealing with it every day. Yeah. How can we actually structure it in this services?
Yeah, so yeah, as you know, we're working together, of course, in one of the market researches, and then you already see when you do, let's say, a desk research that is high level, then you already see that there's a lot to gain from that kind of research to determine, okay, which segments or markets are interesting. And I think the next step that we're now working on is to identify per region, per type of customer. This can be structured, this can be the way of growing, this can be geographic, this can be pest pressure. What is the value? And I think that will lead to a very interesting discussion, because then it's not one size fits all anymore. And I think that is a starting point for further iterating and discussing, okay, how can we now tweak the business model to this? But I think for us, also still working toward the launch of, let's say, the real impact product as we see it, where we really tackle the pest and reduce, let's say, crop protection solutions. That still needs to prove itself a little bit before you can actually start validating it. And we now put it at a certain point, also give a reference price and idea of the model for growers. Okay, this is how it's going to look like. And some are like, okay, it sounds interesting. And others like, okay, maybe they're not for me. But yeah, this is just the current reference point that you can take from my perspective.
Okay, thank you. Maybe following to Christine, you mentioned the different portfolio of services your Digital Innovation Hub provides, including the business model, pricing, strategy, advice, and services. Repeating a bit what Maurits is also saying, in your hub you have integrated it. It means you have the full package. Maybe the open question is, how do customers come with questions on the business model to you? Or are you raising the questions while working with them on other topics?
It's primarily the latter. Some customers will hold their hands up, but they're probably maybe 20% of customers will come to us and say, we have a technical problem and a technical opportunity, we need your help with it, but we also need a little bit of help on the market side of things. But it tends to be more the latter. You know, when you start talking about the problems, it kind of emerges, well, you're going to need to, you know, this piece of work is critical to it. But I thought Maurits's presentation was really interesting, and it's given me a lot of food for thought. I think, unfortunately, sometimes we undervalue the business aspect of what we do, because in order to deliver a solution, we have to do some of the business aspects, and they're baked into what we do, but we're not necessarily exposing those services enough or specifying those services enough, but to do a good job, they have to be done. So I think that's one thing that we can get smarter on. We will deliver it. Sometimes it's more explicit. You know, it'll be a whole body of work with a separate, you know, separate deliverables. Sometimes it's delivered inherently in what we do, and it's less evident. You know, it's there to be seen. But I think we can get better at realizing the value from those services as well. I think, you know, when you put up that chart about what organizations are willing to pay for, that was very illuminating, and we need to get better at getting the value for those services that we're delivering, because to do a good job, you have to deliver them. So, you know, that's food for thought for me.
Great. Again, mixing the questions, our own business models as a digital innovation hub, how do you create value? How do you capture it with the different models, as well as how do you actually help your clients who might not think about asking in support for their business model, but it comes up automatically in the dialogue in the existing services you provide, technological, non-technological. Maurits, maybe a question to you. You indicated that it's important to integrate and have near the technical and the non-technical services, the business model services. Does it have implications to where should you locate the technical and the non-technical services in a digital innovation hub, or in a regional European digital innovation hub, or in a network? If you talk about the AgROBOfood network, then maybe it could be a network at European level. One consortium partner could provide these services. How do you see that? Where should it be located?
Yeah, so in 2016, we worked together with the Commission to coin the idea of a digital innovation hub. It was nowhere there was the idea of that the technology center could also connect to, should connect to business development and to ecosystem development, let alone about skills. So we coined that idea together with to the Commission, and they embraced that, etc., etc. So then certain digital innovation hubs popped up, and we had an invitation to the Basque Country to help them set up a regional strategy for their digital innovation hubs. And then we came to the conclusion that they had several digital innovation hubs on specific, more innovation-oriented themes, and they needed to collaborate. And we coined the idea of a regional digital innovation hub network. And there, the business development was upgraded to a higher level. So what I see is that the business support, or the business modeling support, can be used for different types of technologies or innovations. And there's a core kind of technology that can be, or expertise that can be used for specific application areas. So I would say that a European Digital Innovation Hub should be the home of these kind of activities. There are specific aspects on that emerge from specific innovations that need to be brought into that more general approach to business modeling. But you can also see, for example, an incubator or an accelerator, they don't care about the technology as such. They have some expertise on specific technologies or innovations, but basically they don't care about that. And they can offer their services to different digital innovation hubs. And that will help them help the efficiency of the innovation hub enormously. It will reduce costs. To build up your team that knows how to support customers with business modeling, it's a costly exercise. And if you can organize that on a regional level, that would be great. Then the connection to the European level. I see that for building European value chains, and that will become more and more important, there's some specific expertise needed. And there you need to have on the AgROBOfood level, expertise available that allows support of building new value chains, new European projects, and those can be connected to that. And there is a kind of a service that is, again, overarching the level of the regions, and they need to be instrumental to get connected to the regions, get connected to the innovation hubs, get connected to the SMEs in the industry at large, or the agricultural industry. So that's how I see it. But there are different, so bottom line is there are different expertise levels, methods, etc., assets that can be organized on a innovation hub level, but mostly on a regional level, and then also some parts are organized on a European level. And you need to think about that.
No straightforward, clear answer.
Of course, of course. We're in the early days of this kind of thinking. Right. I come from TNO, and TNO is a technology center organized organization. We are now the last 5 years getting the business modeling connected to the tech guys, to our tech guys. Difficult.
Any questions from the audience? I'm curious. I have plenty of questions to ask, but maybe there are people in the audience online. Yes,
Sander, there's one question here. Just a moment.
Hello, thank you. My name is Mireille van Hilten. I work at Wageningen. I have a question on what Maurits calls the soft side of innovation. So we're talking about matching the business modeling to the technical innovation. But I wonder, and I would like to hear your opinions, does this soft side of innovation, the business modeling, the increasing the cake, does that also have a soft side to it? So I know that sustainability is often translated into KPI, so we'll use less pesticides or less water, etc. But is there a way, would you think, in the future, since we're at the beginning of all this, to really incorporate these things into the business model so that it's not just about increasing the cake?
If I can answer, yes, you're totally right. So we have developed within TNO, or we are developing a full-fledged strategy on orchestrating innovation. One of the modules of that is alliance building. And this is about creating trust and all these kind of things. So you're totally right. There's a very important element, very soft element to develop those business models. It's because what we're talking about, those new complex innovations are very often multi-actor collaborations between different SMEs to create value chains, SMEs, larger companies, value chains, but also horizontal and vertical value chains. And then the collaboration with research institutes is there. This is about alliance building, orchestrating, which is crucial, and it's a very hard thing to do. Luckily, there are a lot of people that are very experienced in that. And I would advise you to get in contact with them and get them connected to your work.
And if I understood the question well enough, it was not only about the economic case, but you mentioned also the sustainability, right? So here, I think the KPIs you identify should not be limited to the economic KPIs of performance, and the business model should not focus only on the economic outcome. Business models are quite neutral in what you want to achieve. So creating value and capture, but the value doesn't have to be measured in economic hard currency value. You can identify in your business model the social or the environmental value you want to create and capture that. And I think Bram maybe can relate to that, because as you can see, the value created for growers, less pesticides used, might create value that can translate both economic value, but also non-economic value and environmental value. Is that correct, Bram? Sorry for putting you on the spot.
Oh, no problem. No, but that's actually right. And again, that is for every grower different. But you see that some growers also have the ambition to go faster than regulations on the use of insecticides, for example. So they're really, how do you call it? Yeah, empowered with our technology to go that way. They really have this incentive coming from themselves instead of just an economic incentive. And I think that is completely right. That economic value, but there's also society and environmental value that is being addressed. And the mix of that value differs from growers. You have growers that are only looking at it from a money perspective, and others are really thinking about, okay, what is the bigger mission, the vision I have with my products, with my business. And yes, we help growers to capture the value in different ways.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? Online, physical? I was asked to keep a hard look at it.
Here.
Nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
Wow. I have so many more questions I could ask. Maybe an observation, actually, also maybe that also to Case, who's in the audience. I saw, hopefully he's still there. I realized that the recommendations from both Christine and Maurits are to bundle the services provided to SMEs. So the technical and the non-technical services should be combined. And I start noticing myself, I'm working in the AgROBOfood consortium, helping Bram in the market research. I had not thought of offering him business model consultations to start discussing, oh, what does it mean for your business model? It's not what I was asked to. And maybe Wageningen University, what Bram identified, is doing quite technical research, behavioral research. Is there a certain counterpart to provide a stable, integrated look on the coupling and the synergy between the different services provided? Because this is actually what we raised in this session, that it's super important, both Maurits and Christine say, it's super important to have the technical and non-technical services related close to each other, because they interlink and they have impacts on each other. And I kind of realized that I would love to discuss with Bram and maybe Christine as well, what are the implications for the business model and what are different opportunities? How do you scale a business if you want to provide a service? Because you can do it in the Netherlands and you can step in your car and operate your drones in a greenhouse there. But if you want to go to Poland, how do you do that? So actually, maybe Case, if you're there, or Any observations, maybe also for Bram? Is he open for this?
If I
Does
may,
he feel that he gets different services? Yes.
sorry, Kees is not here, but I know from the project perspective that when we get several requests for services within AgROBOfood, we do try to bundle them from the start and maybe see where if we can get either one provider or several providers working together on providing these services. So in practice, we're trying to do that. I'm not sure it's also in the early stages, I would say, but yeah.
It's also pioneering. Okay,
yeah.
Great, good to hear. Any final questions?
Final questions? No.
No. Well, I don't want to keep you from the coffee break, because the coffee breaks are always at least as important, or sometimes more important than the actual sessions. So thank you very much, dear presenters, Bram, Christine, Maurits, for your insights presentations. I really enjoyed it. I think I learned a lot. I hope you and the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. Interesting points raised, interesting observations. I think also for us as AgROBOfood Consortium, some homework to think about how to further integrate those services and how to think in the sustainability to continue doing this. And again, from the question that was raised from the audience, think about, are we offering something new, or are we actually obsolete because these services already exist? Thank you. I'll think the slides are available. I'll share with the coordinator if there's any requests. They were quite useful, I think. So they'll be made available. Thank you for your participation, audience and presenters, and enjoy the coffee break.
Thank you from our side as well. You both the four of you for moderating and presenting. So thanks. Have a good lunch, everybody.